Thank you. Again, my name is Dr. Annette Parker, and I am the president of South Central College. But first, I'd like to tell you a little bit about my background and where that has led me today. I started in production at General Motors in Michigan and am a vet graduate. My background is industrial design, and so I've always worked in manufacturing or manufacturing education. I went on to teach at a community college in Lansing, Michigan for 12 years. And then I was asked to go into administration and lead the college to build a new technical center to support General Motors and other manufacturers in the state of Michigan. After doing that for another 5 years, I was asked to come to Kentucky to work with Toyota and all of the U.S. automotive manufacturers to build a national center of excellence in advanced automotive manufacturing. I did that for 6 years, and after that, we grew the national center to support 12 states and all of the U.S. automotive manufacturers in the Midwest of the United States, as well as the Southeast United States. After I completed a bachelor's degree, a master's degree, and a doctorate, I was then asked to come to Minnesota to South Central College to be president. And there we are, shortly after I arrived, I received a call from the Obama administration to ask me to serve as a member of the Advanced Manufacturing Steering Committee. I am now leading the workforce development component of the Advanced Manufacturing Steering Committee, and immediately knew that I needed to bring these 5 fabulous ladies to the table to help us figure out as a nation how we would continue to be competitive in advanced manufacturing. And so we have a short video for you, and then we will begin our discussion. But before I do that, I would like to thank the Basque government for inviting us here today. And I would like to congratulate the awardees of your recognition of your outstanding work. So thank you.
We take a dream and we make it real. That is what visionaries do. It's what inventors do. This is what manufacturers do. When faced with a problem, we build a solution. And when a challenge arises, we rally together. We are the people who will take an idea and turn the concept into a new reality that people hold and see and stand on every day.
Manufacturing is more than invention. It's the fabric that made our nation great.
Let me again introduce the other four ladies with me today. We call ourselves the Fab Five because we're 5 women that are going to talk to you about the U.S. strategy in manufacturing. First, myself, again, I've been president of South Central College. I've only been there less than a year in that role. Hope Cotner, to my far right and your left, is the Vice President of U.S. Projects at the Center for Occupational Research and Development in Waco, Texas. Marsha Danielson, to my right, is Dean of Global Outreach and Strategic Partnerships at South Central College. To my left and your right, Jennifer McNelly is the President of the Manufacturing Institute. And we would like to thank the professor because he had her slides on his presentation today. And then Dr. Maria Coons is Executive Director of Workforce and Strategic Alliances at Harper College. Her president also serves on the Advanced Manufacturing Steering Committee, and all 5 of us serve on the workforce development component of the steering committee. So what is the steering committee doing? It's all about a cross-sector national effort to secure U.S. leadership in the emerging technologies that will create high-quality manufacturing jobs and enhance America's global competitiveness. The steering committee members, there are 19 of them, are all amongst the nation's leading lights in industry, academia, and labor, and we're working with the President's Council of Advisors on Science and Technology. These are the 5 strategy areas that we are working on in AMP. The Advanced Manufacturing Partnership is referred to in the U.S. as AMP. Transformative Manufacturing Strategies, National Network for Manufacturing Innovation. The professor, just prior to the break, referred to the NNMI when he talked about the innovation centers that are being launched throughout the United States. Scale-up policy. How do we help small and medium-sized manufacturers scale up? How do we bring new emerging technologies into the United States and make sure that that research is quickly implemented? The image of manufacturing, something that Jennifer has been very close to for a long time at the Manufacturing Institute. And then the one that we are all working together that we will share with you today, the demand-driven workforce development. But first, I must talk to you about education in the United States. And let me just say in passing that Americans like to be free. We laugh about that. And so you need to really understand the context of how we work to understand how we will address advanced manufacturing as we go forward. And so this is the structure of the American educational system. And what is unique about our system, and maybe not so unique, but it is American in every sense, is that vocational education is done in the academic setting. It's done at the community colleges, and it is for college credit. Marsha and I just spent the last week in Germany, and we know that the dual system is a little different from the American system, but very similar, except that we offer credit for vet students. And there is a path that Hope will talk a lot about when she talks about career pathways. What I'd like to point out is the blue area is our K-12 system. So from kindergarten or even nursery school through high school, where you graduate with a diploma. And then you get into the higher, what we call post-secondary education in the United States. Here, this area I'd like to pay particular attention to, because here is the community college. And you will also have vocational technical institutes that do the same work, maybe as a community college, maybe not offer a degree, but sometimes they do. But pay particular attention to undergraduate programs, because a junior college or a community college, you could do your first 2 years of a bachelor degree at a community college, or you could take a vet program at a community college and then go to the university. But some universities could offer the same curriculum as the community college and do all 4 years there. And there are good examples of that that go on. And then up through the master's degree, the doctoral studies and postdoctoral research. This is the path that I followed. So how is that organized in the United States? Well, first of all, the federal government really has a very limited role in education. Education in the United States is run by the states. And the U.S. Constitution suggests that the states control education. What the federal government will look at is leadership in promoting policy, such as AMP, the AMP initiative that we're sharing with you today. They will administer federal assistance programs. That is a source of funding, a very important source of funding to the states. They will enforce federal civil rights laws and provide statistics, such as things that are going on in your country and around our country. And then they provide limited technical expertise to other federal agencies and the executive office of the president. So public institutions in the United States work within the states. They work within the state government or maybe a municipal government through agreements, charters, budget allocations, boards of trustees, and state regulations, and sometimes state oversight. And let me quickly give you an example of that. My college is in the state of Minnesota. We are a system that has 24 community colleges and 7 universities, all under the same guidance, the same leadership of the MNSCU, Minnesota State College and University Chancellor. We have one board of trustees that supports all of the colleges in the state, except for the University of Minnesota, which is a land-grant college. That's another conversation. And then Maria's college is in the suburbs of Chicago, Illinois, and she has a local board of trustees that her president reports to. So 2 very different structures, and so all 50 states have similarities and yet different. But one thing that's in common is the money from the federal government goes to the states, and then they provide financial assistance, such as federal financial aid to students that have a financial need, etc. So what about curriculum and content standards? There is no national curriculum in the United States, and that's an important thing to remember as we share with you this work. But the states, they're mandated by the United States to make sure that there are standards in place to receive funding from the federal government. The curriculum is really the responsibility of individual institutions with input from industry. That input would come in the form of what we call advisory committees that serve each occupation at our colleges. and other places as well, such as the Manufacturing Institute, which we'll talk about. And basic standards of degrees and creating new programs and higher level programs are governed by accrediting agencies. And generally, there is a national accrediting agency, but generally they're regional. So I think Illinois and Minnesota are under the Higher Learning Commission, which is the accrediting agency for 19 of the U.S. states. These accrediting agencies make sure that you have quality assurance measures in place for each one of the colleges, and they have to maintain minimum standards to remain accredited. And a really bad thing in the United States is to lose your accreditation, because if you lose your accreditation, you're probably going to lose your president. And it's very equivalent to ministerial recognition of institutions, but it's limited to domestic territories in the United States. So now we want to talk about our pathways. So we have all of these accredited institutions offering credit-bearing courses, whether it's VET or whether it's a transfer program to a university. And we have non-credit certificates or training offered by educational institutions. Prior to my arrival at South Central College, Marsha Danielson supported our what we call workforce and economic development training of companies that would work with incumbent workers to make sure that they can upskill to meet new equipment requirements or new technology requirements, etc. We also work with professional associations such as the Manufacturers Institute, community-based organizations, and other accredited and non-accredited organizations. And then we do offer apprenticeship-related credentials that are governed by the U.S. Department of Labor, and we're going to talk about other opportunities with apprenticeship beyond those that are offered with the United States Department of Labor. Certifications that are awarded by industry and professional associations, such as the Manufacturing Institute, are very much a part of our strategy, and it's the only way, in my mind, we will talk about later, to take this initiative to scale. But in all of that, we have various pathways, and we call them pathways, that students can take. And this is part of that whole philosophy about Americans wanting to be free, that they might decide that they want to be in agriculture one day, and then the next day they want to be in marketing. And so how do we navigate and make sure students end up in the path that leads to their success? And that's what we're going to share with you today.
Thank you, Dr. Parker. Hello to all of you. We are delighted and honored to be with you today. As Dr. Parker just pointed out, there are multiple routes to post-secondary education in the U.S. However, it can sometimes be a challenge for many students to finish secondary education, to transition to post-secondary education, and actually complete a degree. This issue is of a critical importance to those of us concerned about America's economic future, particularly that of our manufacturing sector, which relies increasingly on employees with higher levels of education. This visual represents some of our concerns. Georgetown University's Center on Education and the Workforce estimates that 2/3 of all jobs by 2018 will require some college or better. That's a significant portion of our economy. Yet the statistics on the right column there from Complete College America depict how challenging accomplishing this goal will actually be. Of 100 students in the 9th grade now, which is our students' first year of high school, only 69 of them will graduate. Of those that graduate, only 42 will actually enter college. Only 28 will return for their second or sophomore year, and just 13 of them will graduate with a degree. So, To address what we see as a leaking pipeline of students transitioning from high school to college graduation, we've had to really closely examine what's happening in our high schools. What we found is that in addition to high school dropout rates being too high and the rates of college transition and completion being too low, we find that students are disconnected. They don't see the relevance of their schoolwork to their future careers, which is obviously leading to their transition problems and those completion rates being too low. Compounding that, because they're disconnected and they're not really engaging in those last years of high school, those who do transition have extremely high rates of remediation that are so high that it's really becoming a giant both policy and curriculum problem for our post-secondary institutions. And because the remediation in mathematics is one of the core areas that students have to master before they can go on to college-level courses, and we know the relationship of those mathematics foundational skills to manufacturing, it's of extreme importance to those of us on the manufacturing partnership. All of these issues compound the problem that we know is that credential and degree attainment is absolutely essential to U.S. economic growth. We also know that there's currently a mismatch between the skill needs of our employers in manufacturing and the skills of the individuals in our available workforce. So, an approach to education and workforce development that's helping turn the tide on our transition and completion problem is called career pathways. We define them as a series of connected education and training strategies that enable individuals to secure employment within an occupational sector, to advance over time to higher levels of education and employment in that sector, and that each step on this pathway of connected education and employment experiences is designed to prepare an individual for the next level of education and employment. To ensure our students receive the type of education and work-based experiences they need to be successful in the global economy, at the program level, at the local level, at an institution, there are at least 10 key ingredients that we feel like career pathway programs must offer. The first is that programs of study, what students learn in their program, must be aligned to growth sectors. Employers must be actively engaged from the beginning. Career awareness and exploration are critical. Students need to understand the vast range of opportunities, particularly within advanced manufacturing, that offer opportunities for students to be creative and to really explore a whole range of applications of both science, technology, education, engineering, and mathematics, as well as those manufacturing technical principles, to really integrate them into very interesting careers. It's critical that the curriculum be rigorous, that it be sequential, that each step is preparing them for the next level of education, as I mentioned earlier, that the students are engaged in hands-on learning opportunities that are laboratory-based, and that the curriculum is contextualized, so they won't have to answer that question anymore. Why do I have to learn this? How is this relevant to my life and my future career? Because they'll immediately see the relevance of academic concepts and technical content to those potential careers down the road. Employability skills development is something that is really a very broad term, but is critically important to U.S. manufacturers, and we hear employers across the globe citing this as a concern as well. And these are the soft skills, if you will. Teamwork, learning to work together in a team to solve problems under deadlines, to communicate well with others, to support each other as a team. All of those skills are really important and start at the secondary level, building the foundation for students to be prepared for their work experiences. It's critical that there are multiple entry and exit points in these pathways, and we'll talk about those more in just a moment, that there are work-based learning opportunities provided by employers and also in the school, that there's a specific continuum of certificate and degree options that are aligned with those multiple exit points, and that adults who are returning have opportunities to take courses convenient for them, so they may not have to leave their jobs that are supporting their families, but they have opportunities throughout even evening and weekend courses to be able to return and enter a Pathways program, and providing and receive support services available to really provide a safety net, if you will, to help them return to education. And that obviously collaboration among those stakeholders at the local level are key. This next slide is a snapshot of a progression of opportunities available to learners to board a career pathway program. Each on and off ramp is critical to ensuring learners benefit from a well-connected series of instructional opportunities that are intentionally designed to give them a broad set of foundational skills, as well as the specific technical skills needed to be successful in occupations such as those in advanced manufacturing. And you'll see here those entry as well as exit points. So whether a learner is in high school and they're entering a program from what we might consider a traditional pipeline, if a learner is an adult who may or may not have earned their high school diploma and they're ready to re-enter education, they have an opportunity to do so. Or once those learners then complete their secondary education and transition to post-secondary, there are multiple opportunities within that post-secondary experience for them to earn credentials, to go to work, and then return as needed for further education. And these connected sequential steps on the pathway help ensure that we're supporting student transitions all along the way, that those multiple entry and exit points are there and very clear and visible to students, that we help eliminate barriers to completion of degrees and industry credentials. We communicate to our communities that this is a systemic change as far as an educational approach to workforce development challenges, and that ultimately we build a culture of learner success for all of our students, regardless of their age. Here's a sample pathway from Dr. Coons' college in Illinois that illustrates what I'm talking about. This outline of Harper's advanced manufacturing professional education pathway clearly indicates to learners and their potential employers the specific foundational academic and technical competencies they'll acquire in step 1 of their pathway. Step 1 then prepares them to earn a manufacturing production certificate and secure an internship or entry-level employment. That's the first box there. Step 2 continues the progression, providing additional instruction related to the learner's selected area of specialization within manufacturing, in which they'll also serve an internship as part of that step. Step 3 then allow the learner to complete certificates in their specialized field and pursue employment upon completion of those. Steps 4 and 5 represent the last 2 boxes in the previous visual, providing multiple opportunities for the student to re-enter the career pathway, earn an associate's degree, and even a baccalaureate degree as needed. They can go to work and return, and these are seamless opportunities for them to enter the workforce and return to pick up where they left off and return to the next step of the pathway, because this continuum of education and employment experiences has been intentionally designed to meet the skill needs of area employers and the education needs of learners. This next slide shows what appears to be a much more complicated pathway, but really is not. This is from Dr. Parker and Ms. Danielson's college, South Central, and it's an adapted form of the project that Dr. Parker mentioned earlier, the Automotive Manufacturing Partnership Initiative. And what's really important to note here is not all the boxes and squares, but the fact that there are opportunities for all of those learners, whether you're coming from secondary education or from high school, to progress through the continuum, and you'll see those right here at the bottom. And then you'll see there are opportunities for 3 different types of adults. If you're an adult who has completed a secondary diploma but does not have any work experience or industry credentials, there's an opportunity for them to then begin and earn those steps along the way to exit and return. There's an opportunity for another adult who may be coming from a non-traditional pathway to possibly take an apprenticeship route and then earn degrees and credentials upon that additional layer, if you will. And also for a graduate of those programs then to come and matriculate into a baccalaureate engineering degree and pursue further education beyond that. So this really shows the vast and broad continuum from high high school all the way to baccalaureate degrees and beyond, so that we're showing there are opportunities for everyone. Regardless of where you are, there's an on-ramp for you, and a very intentional design to make sure that you can pick up where you left off if you go on to work. This intentional design I've referenced doesn't just happen. It's the result of a collaborative, strategic partnership at the local level in which all stakeholders, employers, educators, and community leaders are engaged from day one. Educators don't plan manufacturing career pathways programs in isolation on their own. It's a two-way dialogue of education and workforce development issues, critical importance to the community's economic growth. And it doesn't just happen in one meeting at the beginning of the pathways design process. Partners communicate frequently over time, and there's continuous feedback on the part of employers to educators as they work in tandem to design and enhance manufacturing career pathways programs that meet the evolving needs of local and regional industry. This partnership means that all stakeholders are willing to adopt a common vocabulary and are willing to give and take, keeping in mind what's best for the community as a whole, and that they're all willing to see the journey through to completion to ensure the number of learners who complete post-secondary education credentials at each step have the tools, program offerings, course sequences, and opportunities to earn industry-recognized credentials at each juncture along the way. Working in partnership also means breaking down stereotypes that many Americans have of the manufacturing workplace. Today's manufacturing work environments are clean, efficient, and technology-driven, and they offer high-skill work in high-growth occupations that require creativity and ingenuity. Yet many in our communities really don't understand that. So to ensure that parents and community leaders at large are aware of these amazing opportunities for employment in advanced manufacturing, outreach strategies, unique recruitment programs, and mentoring relationships are critical to ensuring women, youth, and our men and women returning from military service have every opportunity to participate and be successful in manufacturing career pathways. It's also critical that our faculty, our instructional leaders, have the tools that they need to keep those students engaged at the classroom level. And this photo here is just one example of many resources that are being developed across the country to support educators at the classroom level to really engage a diverse population in manufacturing careers. Our work is far from complete. We have both opportunities and challenges before us, and as a nation, we have to stay focused on our goals. We know that we need to engage in meaningful partnerships that yield results for all stakeholders. We need to build manufacturing education programs that meet the economic needs of communities, that really align curriculum to our employers' expectations and those industry credentials that they value. We need to create opportunities for diverse learners to be successful in these manufacturing programs, and ultimately to graduate students that possess the skills employers need to ensure a high-quality workforce.
So that brings us to stackable credentials, the approach for the middle skills. And when we talk about middle skills in North America, we are talking about the level above the foundational level or the entry level. We're talking about the middle level. Oh, I do want to go back. So U.S. manufacturers need a strong technical workforce. They rely on the right workers to have the right skills at the right time, so when they drive innovation, they can increase productivity and become more globally competitive. As our former speaker, Guillermo, mentioned, we are using more and more technology in order to meet this need. And as we use more technology, we need higher communications and we need higher analytical skills. Employers are looking at their existing workforce and expecting them to upgrade their skills as well. So when Hope talked about the pathways, that's why that's so important, because someone might be in a job and their employers are saying, because we've purchased new technological equipment, we need you to go back and earn additional skills just to stay employed. So the pathways is what allows us to do that. Again, easy entry and easy exit points for these additional needs that employers have. And we really are concentrating on 3 things in the United States: on the competency-based education. So that person who's working in a manufacturing job may not have earned the education at a college that says they know the competencies needed for that advanced job. But what we can do is assess their knowledge, skills, and abilities and put them in that pathway that we showed you, depending on where they, as an individual learner, where they fall into that pathway. We're working very hard to have our credentials to be portable, meaning they can be used in different places and different jobs. Stackable, that you can come back at any time that works for you and get more education. And most importantly, we need them to be recognized by the industry. We need manufacturers to be confident that those individuals have the skills that they need. And at this point, industry is learning to recognize and endorse those stackable credentials. So what do we mean when we talk about credentials? There are many different kinds of credentials in the United States. You've probably heard that just here already with only 3 of us speaking. And there are a variety of organizations that are offering these credentials. They might be offered within the context of education at a college. They might be from a workforce development organization or a training organization. All of them with the effort of trying to improve our labor market. But most importantly, the credentials need to be verified that you have a competency, it's a quality competency, and that it's issued by a third party. So not only am I, the person who's the instructor, saying that you have that skill, there's an assessment by another person that's saying you have that skill. Within the competencies that are issued by these third parties, they could be a college, it could be an industry-recognized association, again, like the Manufacturing Institute. It could be a professional association or society, like the American Welders Society. Credentials from the education, the different types of credentials that are included. For educational institutions, we have degrees, diplomas, and certificates. These are credit-bearing, as Dr. Parker said. Some of them are credit-bearing, others are non-credit-bearing. We also issued a National Career Readiness Certificate to say that you are ready to go into the field, that you know how to work on a team, like Hope talked about, and that you will show up to work on time. We actually have trouble with that. Jennifer, what is it that you say, that someone is drug-free and? Attendance. And they'll attend. That's the lowest level of possibility to work. And we also have apprenticeships and licensures. So there's a lot of different ways that you can acquire those skills, knowledge, and abilities. There are 4 attributes to our credentials. Industry recognized. What we mean by that is that they are endorsed by a national association like the Manufacturing Institute, and that a sizable portion of that industry helped to create those credentials. that they also are sought by companies so that they are advertising them in their recruitment strategies, in their purpose for hiring. They're asking for those credentials. It might be also from an industry certification, like the Siemens certifications. So there are, again, a lot of different ways that it is industry recognized. Secondly, stackable. What we mean by that is that it's a sequence of credentials. You attain one, and then you can grow into additional over time. It doesn't have to happen right away. It can happen over time. And you move along that career path or that career ladder in hopes to have a higher paying job. The portability of the the portability of these credentials means that you could move to a different geography, that you, it would be similar. You could move to a different occupation. We were talking with the Germans last week about how if you were a shipbuilder and you knew how to weld, you could move into the automobile industry, and that you would still have those skills, that you could move the portability. Also, something that we're really just starting to work on is the educational institutions. That if you earn this degree at one educational institution, that you will also be able to have that acknowledged at another. We within the state of Minnesota are working very hard so that if you move from one college to another college, even within our 24 vocational or vet educators, you won't lose any time. You won't lose any credit. And then the accredited is simply assuring the level of quality. When we talk about those third-party credentialers, we are most commonly talking about ANSI, the American National Standards Institute. And ANSI is the U.S. equivalent within the ISO, the International Standards Organization. So it's the standard-based organization that helps us with our professional assessments and our professional certifications. And the second one is ICE and our National Commission for Certifying Agencies. It's really, again, something that we build upon. So first and foremost, you have your basic attendance, your employability skills, as Hope talked about, teamwork, work ethic, those types of things. Upon that, we build on the basic academics, your reading, your writing, your mathematics. And then we move into the workplace competencies, those things that are more technical in nature, those things that our industry is looking for. We continue to move up the ladder and become more specialized as we move up that ladder. The industry-wide technical competencies, again, might be something like the American Welding Society. Then you continue to move up, and you all the way up the pyramid, you become more specialized in your field, and ultimately you can move up into those management positions. So you could move up through a technical pathway to become an engineer, a manager within engineering. The overlay of that, as I talked about, is that you have your National Career Readiness credential, you have your industry credential. The National Institute of Metal Workers is another group that we work with. And then you have like your Society of Manufacturing Engineers. Sorry about that. Thank you. Okay, our education pathways. This is just another way to look at the things that we've already talked about. There are 3 distinct pathways that you can come in and out of. The educational pathway, the career pathway, and then the certification pathway is really our industry credentials. So again, on the far left, what you're seeing is the education, the secondary education with your high school. You move into your post-secondary up through your engineering technician, and then you move to your bachelor's and even beyond that, your master's levels. And akin to that, if you go across, you see that at a high school diploma, you could go into a job and be an operator, and you might get your National Career Readiness Certificate. You go above that, and you're at a vocational or a vet school. And then you can either go into the job and be certified as a production technician, and the industry would recognize you by giving you your MSSC certificate. So if you work your way across, our goal is to have multiple ways that you are recognized for your knowledge, skills, and ability so that they are more portable. They're, again, competency-based, and they can stack upon each other based on where you're at in your own life, in your own lifestyle. So we're not there yet. There are challenges with this, obviously, and we continue to work toward really how we are going to do this. Some of the work that we're doing at our educational institution is we're breaking our credit programs into smaller modules. So right now you might take a 3-credit course in manufacturing, and you'll learn safety, and you might learn machining or your introduction to machining, that type of thing. What we're doing is breaking that into modules so that it's manageable and it's stepping stones for people to come in and out of. Say, for example, you were a logistics engineer or a logistics technician in the Navy, and you came back, and you actually do this at Harper College. You come back, and they look at what knowledge you have from the Navy, and they will say, you don't have to take these 2 or 3 courses because you already have that knowledge. If you have been in industry, and your industry sends you to an educational opportunity, and you earn a certificate from the industry, the Siemens certificate. We look at that as an educational institution and say, what does that equal so that you don't have to take these courses? Credit for prior learning. Our policymakers are really having to look at these issues because right now, the federal financial aid, for example, which Dr. Parker mentioned is so important to us, it is based on the number of hours of credit that you're taking. And if we break it into modules, they will take less credit. So how will we help students finance their education is something our policymakers are needing to look at. And dual enrollment. We're looking at our high schools, and we're saying, if they're earning the knowledge in high school, is there a way that we can give them college credit for that at the same time to accelerate the pathway so that they get into the jobs and fill those vacant jobs as quickly as possible? So you can see we have many challenges. The challenges are that if we move to or as we move to a competency-based rather than a time-based or hourly-based program, we need to really collaborate and work together to get that accomplished. We especially need our educational institutions to work together. The portability is an important factor in this goal that we continue to work for, and we need to cooperate between the occupational programs, between the industry, and between the educators. I mentioned the policy concerns, and finally, Jennifer, her organization is working very hard with all of us to help educate employers. They just came out with what we call a toolkit to give it to employers to help them understand. In the United States, healthcare does a really good job of asking for their credentials, a certified nursing assistant, or an LPN, which is a licensed practical nurse, or RN, which is a registered nurse. They ask for those kinds of credentials. But in manufacturing, we're behind. We don't necessarily ask for that. So that's something that we need to help educate the employers so they start to ask for these credentials. And finally, what do we get in return for that? It's a great opportunity. We get a positive return on investment. We're going to tell you a little bit later about how we're working with our veterans who are returning from the war, and getting them educated in manufacturing and giving them credit for what they have for skills, knowledge, and ability already. As we were in Germany, we talked a lot last week about the unemployed youth. And like in Europe, we also have a concern in the United States about our unemployed youth. Many youth are undecided. They're not ready to make a decision about what they want to do in their careers when they're 18 years old and they graduate from our high schools. And so our pathways are allowing them an opportunity to go and get a job and come back and earn more, so that they can earn more education, so they can earn higher levels of employment. And finally, we're hoping that some of what we're here today to share with you can be applied, and we can help each other to work on the needs for our middle skills.
Thank you. I'm honored to be here with my colleagues. It is not often. I spend a lot of time traveling around the United States, and it's not often that I am the only woman representing manufacturing. So to be here with my distinguished colleagues, thank you to the Basque country for inviting us to share our story. I'm actually going to look at this from the perspective of the employer. So my role at the Manufacturing Institute is to wake up every single day and worry about our workforce, to make sure that we have the workers that we need. And when you look at manufacturing in the United States, if in fact it stood alone, it would be the 9th largest economy in the world. And that means 12 million workers, just about 12 million workers, another 6 million in allied and support. So to not have the workers that we need has serious impact on our competitiveness. And in the United States, we actually have a very long history of training workers our way, to an individual company's requirements. And that's really the root of apprenticeship in the United States. What has changed about apprenticeship in the United States is the leaning process of manufacturing. So to reference the earlier slides and the accelerated productivity and process improvement, part of what that meant in manufacturing was we needed to stop doing things we didn't do well, and one of them was training. So through public-private partnerships, as those represented today, we have really redefined the future of developing what I consider to be our most important supply chain, our talent. And apprenticeship is one of the pathways that we use very effectively in the United States. And not just in manufacturing, but apprenticeship in the United States would be what you would traditionally know as apprenticeship in a global context. Only in the United States, we have a couple of key characteristics that are unique. Much like our stackable credentials that we've talked about, apprenticeship is not just limited to the secondary and post-secondary students. We have individuals, including our transitioning veterans or our underemployed individuals, that can enter into apprenticeships. So that consistent theme of having on and off ramps allows us to succeed. Much like Dr. Parker set the stage for the education system, in the United States, the National Apprenticeship Act governs what is the regulated side of apprenticeship in the United States. It is a federal statute, and to Dr. Parker's notice that we tend to be more local and want freedom at the community level. In states, they have the option to not just abide by the Federal Apprenticeship Act, but to enhance that at the state level to add additional elements. So again, the ability to take a national framework and really make it suit the community level. Apprenticeship across multiple sectors in the United States, 37,000 programs, 250,000 employers, and almost 500,000 apprentices. And it is very diverse in its application. It is not just in traditional middle skills jobs. It equally happens in the public sector and in utilities. And in fact, within manufacturing, less than 10% of the manufacturing training is aligned to what would be the federally regulated apprenticeship model. Dr. Parker also mentioned the important role that the federal government plays. Part of the strategy behind the Advanced Manufacturing Partnership is to use the limited federal resources we have to incentivize change. And the three that I note here, announced by the President and Vice President less than 6 weeks ago, one of them was very focused on how you realign apprenticeship programs in partnership with community colleges across the country. The President has also noted the importance of our capacity for education and job training to happen at the community and technical colleges, therefore strengthening their role because traditionally employers had done it themselves. So we need to build that capacity at the community and technical colleges. What is also unique about the US system is the very strong focus on diversity. So it's not just our transitioning veterans, our unemployed or underemployed. We also have a national effort around more women, and that reflects the changing demographic of the US workforce. The other thing that is inherent in the strategy that is guided by AMP 2.0 is our recognition that we don't know all the answers. And in fact, in 2012, the Institute hosted a global symposium on talent-driven innovation, recognizing that key to innovation was the quality of the workers. I talk about that being the important differentiator is the knowledge and skill of our workers that make the difference every single day. And it was the first time we had on stage representatives from the German embassy in the United States and the White House and the US Department of Labor and the US Department of Commerce all talking about new efforts to learn from global leaders in apprenticeship. So in the structure in the United States, and part of our great honor of being here, is we're really good at taking best practices from around the country and customizing them for the unique characteristics that is education and job training in the United States. And that is really our structured apprenticeship program. But what is also very unique about the United States is the majority of what we call our work-based learning, or earning and learning together, happens in an unregistered environment. It happens through cooperative education programs with community and technical colleges. It happens through internships. And in the end, the characteristics of both the registered programs and the unregistered programs are very similar. They both require that you have employer sponsors. They need to be driven by the demand side and where the employment opportunities are. they equally require that there be a written plan. Unique to the U.S. system is also that they are competency-based. The last reauthorization of the Apprenticeship Act moved from time-based to competency-based. And that was really important because individuals that had skills could assess out and advance down that pathway in a more accelerated environment. They are both grounded in national certifications, but in the case of internships and cooperative education, sometimes that credential can just be at the community or local level, and that's part of what we've been driving at the Institute, is the use of national assessments in building that pathway. The last two critical elements is where apprenticeship and then internships or work-based learning is diverse in the United States. In the United States, with a structured registered apprenticeship, the apprentice is an employer and the agent of record is the manufacturer. Now, within manufacturing in the United States, there is a strong usage of what are temporary or staffing agencies. So oftentimes in internships and cooperative education, it is a third-party staffing agency that is the agent of record. And that's important because within the regulations of the employment system in the United States, it's a recognition that manufacturers, as employers, have a whole set of risk and liabilities, very different culture in how they look at and onboard employees. So that staffing agency and that third-party employer allows them greater flexibility as they transition workers in. The other unique difference is in who regulates and manages the system in the United States. In a registered apprenticeship program, it is governed by the Federal Apprenticeship Act and then state requirements that may be in place, again, unique across the 50 states. In an internship or cooperative education program, it's actually managed by the employer and their education partner, and government does not have a role. That actually brings us to unique opportunities and challenges. Within the United States, we actually have seen a resurgence of government promoting public-private partnerships and internships. And that's important because the federal incentives that we talked about encourage more of those partnerships to occur. The second is the unique competency-based structure within the United States that allows for multiple on-ramps and off-ramps. Diverse populations get accommodated that way, and as manufacturing has evolved, it allows us to attract a new knowledge worker, as was noted in our previous presentation. We also have some unique challenges, and one I haven't heard talk about, but certainly the top of every list when I'm speaking with manufacturers in the United States is the image problem. We have a huge challenge with people still understanding that we make things in the United States and that there are good career opportunities. So before we can even get them into a quality education pathway, we essentially have to sell them that they're good jobs. Second is speed matters in the United States. Employers are used to having instant impact in the kinds of partnerships, and that means we need to manage expectations for short-term return as well as long-term. And that's where the use of industry credentials comes in. A certified production technician, which is the first step in that pathway, is a short-term strategy. To get to an industrial maintenance technician, you need a structured apprenticeship pathway and 2 years of training. So answers today and answers for the long run. And then in the end, one of the other challenges that we have in the United States is not just the education of manufacturers and the fact that 80% of them are small and medium manufacturers. Therefore, they're looking for 1 or 2 employees, not dozens. The other side of it is most of them do not use community and technical colleges, so we need to educate them about the opportunities in their own backyard, but then equally build successful partnerships. And I think one of the challenges and great opportunities with the use of apprenticeship is we build the bridge between the public sector side and the private sector side. And then one of the last challenges we have in the United States is what is the right role of the federal or state government as it relates to workforce. And in the United States, employers position themselves that it is not the role of government to manage how individual workers are trained in advance. That really needs to happen at the community level.
Thank you. I will finish our presentation with some information about veterans in the United States and how we are taking all the principles that we discussed today and applying them towards this very special population. Our veterans are our returning service men and women in the United States who have sacrificed quite a bit. In their military service, they have undergone very rigorous education and training that we have paid for through our U.S. government. And these veterans return, and unfortunately, the unemployment rate, which we saw, the dean showed us at between 6 and 7%, is 3 times higher for our United States veterans, which is unacceptable. So taking the work that we've done in the AMP 2.0 initiative, where we take a look at competency-based, so it's what you know rather than how many hours you sit in a chair in a school. It's also coming in and out of education because our veterans have families that they need to support, and there are sometimes better times going to school than others. And then third is stacking their credentials. So starting out with some certifications to your associate's degree, to your bachelor's degree. And we are integrating all these steps through our work on this White House initiative with our veterans. So what we've done is we are looking at badging. So these are badges that our veterans can earn based on the skills and competencies that they've learned while in the military. And this helps translate those skills from their service life to their civilian life when they come back to work after their service. And this type of badging saves quite a bit of time and resource because it allows them to get credit for what they have already learned while in the military. So I'd like you to meet Daniel. This is a case study that was provided to us by the Manufacturing Institute by Jennifer. And Daniel was in the U.S. Navy, and he became an aviation electronics technician. That required quite a bit of training and education. But if Daniel comes back to the United States, very frequently he would be required to go back to school to relearn what he's already learned, which is unacceptable. So we are building pathways for our veterans that will translate their military training into what can happen in a civilian type of position in the world of manufacturing. So this translation of skills helps our military personnel earn credentials at a community college, and it also helps them map that skills and training to what the employers are requesting in the manufacturing arena. This is an example of a welder position, so a little bit different from Daniel. So we have our military personnel undergo welding training within their military service. And these are the types of tools that we've developed online where they can pull up a code that they're given in their military service, and it translates that skill set that they have acquired to their civilian types of positions that are available. And this is an example of one for a welder. I come from a community college outside of Chicago, and we're a relatively large community college. We're very independent, and we have over 100 employers in our area that have been asking for veterans that have these types of skills to come to work for them. So bringing that voice of the employer to the table is critical. So we are helping to identify the veterans, bring in their skill sets, map those to our educational programs, give them credit for those skills so that they can continue on their pathway more quickly and get to work, which is the most important aspect. How the employers can engage with the veterans are there are similar tools that they can take their work requirements and map them back to the military experience that the veterans have acquired while they were deployed and gone through their technical training. So this is working both ways, that the military service personnel can come, look at their skills, see if they can get college credit for them, and our employers can do the same to try to capture those skills and see how they apply to their individual needs. So this is another screenshot from some of the tools that we have, and it connects the types of positions to the military positions that our personnel have gone through. So this is a real-world situation of taking competency-based, so what you know and what you've learned, mapping it back to the educational environment, and then giving the credit for those skills to the military personnel so that they can earn their credentials quicker, and then allowing them to stack. And it also gives our employers access to those skilled workers that they've been waiting for, because there is a lack of a shortage of those skilled workers in the United States. So this is a way of mapping or connecting all the dots that we talked about today. So I'll turn it over to Dr. Parker, who will conclude for us.
So in conclusion, a summary of the problem that we face in the United States is it's very difficult to understand what a post-secondary credential represents. And I'll give you an example in the great state of Minnesota. I mentioned earlier that there's 24 community and technical colleges in the state of Minnesota. And we all work for the chancellor of the Minnesota system. Yet all 24 colleges have different curriculum, not different in subject, but difficult to translate what it means from one college to the other until you really sit down and take the time to understand what those differences are. That's a big problem for employers as they're looking, and they may have 5 or 6 sites where they're manufacturing in the state of Minnesota and working with 5 or 6 of the different colleges. They need to be able to quickly understand what an education in one school means for an education at another. So therefore, that makes it very difficult for the employers to know what that post-secondary credential accurately reflects. It's difficult for post-secondary credentials to cross boundaries. We talked about that as well between the colleges, but also with our veterans that are returning. Or if we have a young person that's in high school and has advanced to college level work, how do we translate that so that they can accelerate through the community and technical college? There's also a lack of knowledge of the current credentialing system, the marketplaces there, and the cost for the employers, government, students, job seekers, and educators in that. It has huge impact on our economic stability in the United States. These are the results. Employers can't find job candidates who possess the needed skills and abilities, and job seekers with credentials can't find employment that uses their skills and abilities. In the state of Minnesota, in my region, the unemployment rate is less than 4%, yet employers do not have the workforce that they need. And so we need to make sure that we can quickly get them the workers that they need to grow their production. Thousands of our veterans struggle to translate the skills that they obtained while in our service into civilian credentials, jobs, and career pathways. This is what it looks like in the United States. I won't explain. It's very complex. It is a witness to what I called our freedom. And so we have to navigate a very complex system. So how do we do that? What are we recommending for the workforce component of the Advanced Manufacturing Partnership? We have strategies to increase career pathways and dual credit. And what I mean by that is, Hope talked about this earlier, high school students taking technical courses that transfer or they can get high school credit at the same time that they get college credit. We have examples of where high school students nearly complete an associate degree before they graduate. Before they graduate from high school. And so they're able to do both, and that accelerates them through their pathway and into work and higher wages. You increase nationally portable, stackable credentialing systems through certifications and work-based learning elements. The stackable credentials that you've seen in our presentation that are led through the Manufacturing Institute in Jennifer's work, we feel at AMP is the only way to get to a national scale to cross those lines around who is offering what and what does it mean in the United States. In the state of Minnesota, I talked about the 24 colleges and not understanding what it means to take this course at South Central College or to take it at my neighbor college, Riverland. In the state of Minnesota, we will map to the Manufacturing Institute's national credentials that we showed you earlier, and it will make it level throughout Minnesota. So if you are at a production level and you receive the MSSC, Certified Production Technician, at Riverland or at South Central College, manufacturers will be able to understand that, and they will begin to know more about what that credentialing system means to them and accelerate and make sure that we are having the economic prosperity that we need as a nation. We also plan to establish regional work-study-based apprenticeship models. Some of that will come through the $100 million that Jennifer mentioned earlier, but also over the last 2 years, the Obama administration has set aside $2 billion to focus on what we call TACT grants. There's another solicitation currently for $450 million that will include all of these strategies. Develop a practical guide for transitioning veterans, and actually Harper College will lead that initiative to make sure that our veterans are transitioned into work as rapidly as we can. We have an excellent military, and they can quickly take those skills that we've trained them to be excellent veterans to work in our companies in the United States. And so that's all we have for you today. And we, again, would like to thank the Basque government and honor our awardees today.